A little bit about your career, Bob.
Well, it's more or less complete, I suppose. The big marker was 1974 when I arrived in Australia. I had graduated a couple of years before that and had worked in the UK, then came out here, did a stint down in Sydney, and then came to Brisbane in about 76, 77. And I've been here ever since. Brisbane's been an interesting city to be in IT because we had an inordinate number of quite large companies and they went on to be quite successful. And I attributed that to the fact that for a long time nobody knew Brisbane existed.
Right.
Therefore the big international companies ignored the space and allowed us to get on with what we were doing and growing quite well. So you had 2 or 3 publicly listed companies at the end of 2 decades of that, and a number of quite successful companies as well.
Right.
When I first came up here, in Sydney, I was working with Computer Sciences Australia, as it was at that time, CSA. And that involved working in the bowels of Wynyard Station, 2 floors down, next door to the platforms. It was quite interesting watching your old monitors go very wavy as the big magnets on the trains went past.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
quite an interesting fact. That was all basically UNIVAC gear, which was state of the art at the moment, UNIVAC 1100, replacing IBM 360s, 370s. So that was quite an interesting introduction. I did that for about 18 months. Then came up to Brisbane to join Brisbane Gas,
Right.
which was part of Boral. That again was with Burroughs gear. So you'll notice all these things, these are big names that all disappeared.
Yes.
Over time. It's quite interesting. And even IBM to a large extent has disappeared in a lot of ways.
Yeah, very different beast today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then from Brisbane Gas, it was an interesting example of trying to fix a problem that wasn't ours. We found that about 4 o'clock in the afternoon the system would crash for no particular reason. And Burroughs spent a year denying it, and eventually got a guy out from the States who said, well, it's obvious, isn't it? Those disk drives don't work with that computer. And we got a new set of disk drives and everybody's very happy after that.
Yes.
But it was just an example of really how everybody was in denial for a long time, which was a bit of a problem. From Boral I went to Tisdall over in Archfield.
Right.
And that's been a circular journey because that's where I'm working now.
Yep.
Tisdall were a large construction and mining company. Again, that was UNIVAC 1100, big machine for a small company. And from there I went to Computer Rack, which was Digital Equipment Corp gear. Another company disappeared.
Yes.
Not sure what the link is there. Computer Rack was specialising in local government. So I got to see quite a bit of Eastern Australia going around local government organisations, and that was you used to drive down the New England Highway and say, well, that's one of ours, that's one of ours, that's one, we've got to get that one over there. Right. And it was a bit that way. That was quite an interesting experience, and that's really how the genesis of eventually leaving Computer Rack with the encouragement of the boss there at that stage, Bob Duncable, and he gave me my first contract outside that, and that was with Philly Rice Transport, who had just organised bringing a system. So I was able to help them for a couple of years actually, and they were a good basic customer to go on. And that was really the start of my own personal journey. And the goal was 2 things about that. One, the company was called AI. Right. I was miles ahead of the game. Yes. I never maintained that company, bit of a pity. And the second one was I was actually had a theory that there were quite a lot of very clever people, mainly women, who, for one reason or another, needed to work from home.
Right.
And that was becoming a possible thing to do with the very excitement of sort of reasonably high speed, relative word, modem technology. So I ended up with probably 5 or 6 people, all working from home or working part-time. So almost as we've ended up now with the gig economy.
Yes.
That worked quite well. Eventually I got together with 3 other guys and we merged the companies together, and that was the start of Dialogue.
Right. And what year was that?
That would be 1985.
Right.
By that stage. So I've been sort of out there working with myself for a bit, 2 or 3 years by that stage. And in 1985 we got together with 3 other guys, mainly because we were travelling in a very similar route in a lot of ways. The guys in Dialogue had a specialist consultancy in technical computing, so they were all quite whiz at Fortran, as you were at that way, and I was quite adept at COBOL, again, as you were at those days.
Yeah.
I'd also had a fair degree of interest in being databases. I was having the job at TEAS, for instance, was as DBA.
Yeah.
So that went quite well, and we grew that company from about 25 at the start through to 1100 at the end.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a big journey of about 35 years, which was quite exciting at times. I'm proud to say we've always paid people. So that was not necessarily ourselves, but we paid people. It was quite a simple formula. It was actually to just get your foot in the door, do some bloody good work, and then you get invited back forever.
Yeah.
And that's the way it worked. And we recruited the right people.
Yeah. And
we got into the marketplace. Gradually moved out of the specialist area of mining into more general, and then particularly government. So we did quite a lot of government work in the end. And that grew over time. We acquired 2 or 3 companies on the way, and also expanded right across the country. So the end configuration was there was an office in every state,
right,
and there was people working in every state on the way through. The end point was a couple of years ago now, or 3 years ago now, when we sold out to NCS, aka Singtel.
Yes.
On that. The interesting thing about that part of the journey is we probably had decided we were going to sell about 7 or 8 years before we actually achieved it. And we went through a lot of dates that didn't finalise, if I put it that way, for one reason or the other. We were quite big at that stage in the game, so it really was going to be a choice between going public or doing a trade sale.
Yes.
Interesting enough, my peers in Data3 and Technology One, both public companies, basically said, Bob, if we've learnt one thing, don't go public.
Yes, that's been certainly a journey for Technology One, going public.
So that was quite a salutary lesson there that we took on board. And it worked out well. So in the end, being patient, just working through keeping everything tidy in terms of accounts and business practices, and trying to be, if not state of the art, certainly compliant with every sort of regulation and standard that you wanted. There's a challenge in a consultancy organisation. Essentially, you're more often doing stuff that the customer wants you to do, rather than you necessarily want to do. And that probably was true. So often there's quite a bit of mundane work that we did. But it was a good source of income. Why not? There's quite a lot of interesting work we did, but those were individual projects rather than sustainable stuff on the way through. So that was it. So that was a brief sort of tour through the company. Since I, in theory, retired, I did have a standby plan, which was interesting. I didn't think I was a good candidate for retiring. I had learnt to fly during that period of time. I had bought 1 aircraft and then bought a few more aircraft, and then we ended up with quite a large operation out at Archfield now,
Right.
in the aviation space. So we do charter, we train pilots, we train engineers, and we fix planes. So that's a good thing. And we're based in Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and down in Adelaide. So once you sort of start doing these things, it's quite almost impossible to stop.
That's right.
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
On the way through, you just have an enthusiasm for grabbing opportunities as they turn up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case, not being afraid of doing stuff.
And I'd like to explore that a little bit later in this interview, that that evolution from technology over to aviation, which two industries which seem to be very, very aligned in the way they use technology. And
what's interesting is that, to a certain extent, is the biggest contrast between the two is aviation is naturally high-bound with regulation.
Yes.
That stops progress in terms of innovation.
Yeah.
IT, for a long time, was the Wild West.
Yes. Yeah.
In terms of regulation, we've always had belief in the mythology that some 16-year-old is going to make something in the garage and is going to make a fortune doing it. That's the kind of urban myth that existed in IT for a very long time. Indeed.
And probably still does to some degree.
It does. And it's interesting because it may still happen if we look at a few successes around in Queensland. We've done Brisbane, we've done quite well. Atlassian would be the major one. Canberra, I suppose, would be another one. Yeah.
So just staying with your own journey at this stage, so what was the reason for moving to Australia from the UK?
Basically, I came out for 3 months.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was still in the stage that if you had a UK passport, that was it. It was the only thing you knew. So that changed in just probably 75, 76. During the Whitlam era of time, and they basically said, well, we can't have a situation where we're prioritising one country. We have to be seen as being playing fair with everybody. And so that privilege went away, but that was okay for me. I was here. I got a girlfriend over here, ended up marrying her. And that's why I stayed. As simple as that. My mother was very angry with me.
Right. And then moving to Brisbane, I mean, that would have been what, 1977, 1978?
Again, that was the relationship I had at that time. So my first wife was a Brisbane girl.
Right.
So that's why we ended up here. And I must admit, I think Brisbane's a great place to bring up a family. In that respect, I think that you can have, if not a higher standard of living, a more convenient way of living than in Sydney.
Sure.
I think, which is really has become more and more rat race over time. Sorry about saying that for the Sydney side. If I was going elsewhere, I would probably choose Melbourne or Canberra over Sydney for that lifestyle decisions. But Canberra's not a place in itself, but it's getting, as it becomes bigger, I think it's becoming a lot more cosmopolitan. But Brisbane was a place that was interesting because when I first came in 74, that was Christmas 74, Brisbane was just getting, I came up here to meet the family, and Brisbane was just recovering from the flood. New Year 74, Darwin blew away.
That's right.
And then 75, the dismissal happened. When I was living in Sydney, I was sharing a flat with a guy who was in the Builders Labourers Federation, in the middle of the green bands up there. And I'm amused to see that the villains of the green bands, which were the people that managed to preserve the rocks and the have now got streets named after them down there, which I think is quite funny when you consider how vilified they were.
That's very true.
It's one of those strange things.
That's history.
That's right.
Yes.
So it was so the move. None of this was predetermined, and none of it was terribly planned. But it turned out to be opportunities that I could take. And each one of those opportunities I was lucky enough to be available and then able to execute. So that was good. So sometimes I kind of think that I'd tend to dismiss it as saying that it was really a lucky drift through life.
Right.
But I think that the thing that made it reasonably easy was a good work ethic and the ability to get on and solve problems, which I was pretty good at. So I think that happened.
Yeah, so let's turn to your involvement with ACS. How did that come about?
Again, I thought that the ACS was a good organisation to belong to, predominantly for the idea of promoting it as a profession. So if you remember going back that far, we're really at the just at the start of where PCs were starting to emerge. You had the big name companies. There wasn't much in the way of professionalism around the place. There were a lot of people doing good work, but there wasn't any real code of ethics, no responsibility. And it was at a time, in fact, a little later when Ashley Goldsworthy was president and then CEO there. I didn't appreciate one of the things he was doing, which was half smart, which was starting to create a union. Only so that we could have an award. And the point being that, then that stopped people stuffing around. Look, it's having your job claimed by other people who are not going to be useful. So, we ended up with really the idea there was to have our own organisation that we could control rather than inevitably being ended up in the public service union or in the clerks union or whatever. So actually it was half smart at that point of view. So I became interested in the organisation itself and then joined the BEC up here. Remember, I became chairman and then also vice president of council at that time. I also wrote one of the constitutions that the ACS had, and that was a learning experience. Not so much writing the constitution, but how much one person can get in your way. And the tendency, life learning there, is that often there are people you're just never going to be able to applicate. And you can waste a lot of time trying to applicate them. Unfortunately, the nature of a group, and especially committees, is if they've got one person agitating in the committee, they will get almost hold a veto to get things done. And that's sort of a kind of group dynamics thing that is quite hard to overcome in any, especially volunteer organisations. Everybody wants to be nice. But in this case, it basically added about, so a job that should have taken 3 months turned into a job that was taking a year as we went through. And in the end, we just called a general meeting and got it voted in. That was the easiest thing to do.
What year was that?
That would have been probably approaching 1990. So this was the start of trying to defederalise the ACS, if I can put it that way, and make it a little bit more rational. To a certain extent, if you didn't go too far in that, and I think there's bits of danger where it ended up when I had my second bout on the committee here about 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago. I found that that was a point when there was a lot of problems in national around the place, and I think that was again, it was an interesting situation where basically an individual or a few individuals had got hold of the ACS and was steering it in a direction that was not particularly helpful or useful. I think at that stage. So I think it was glad to say there was enough noise created to take another transformation. And I think from what I can see, in a better place now. And a lot more active. I think the interesting thing for the ACS is in the fact that you've got these. One of the missions you've got is dealing with the immigration issues, and that tends to be the danger there is just overwhelmingly that's a huge revenue source, etc. And to balance that against the true mission of the ACS, which is essentially representing the profession and encouraging people to be professional, but believe in the code of ethics and do do things properly. That's a good balancing act.
Yeah, very much so.
To try and do. So that I find interesting. I think better now than they were a decade ago.
Yeah.
Would be my own feeling. And people like Holly and those guys really do a good job.
Yeah.
So, and the amount of, and also the building of the chapters, I think, is another thing that's gone quite well.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
And I think that pushes the influence the ACS quite well across a lot of spaces. But having said that, I'm not sure that the government will turn to us, or a government would turn to us and get responsible advice. We haven't quite achieved that position in lobbying, if I can put it that way. And for a long time, the industry association, led by the big companies, had a lot more influence than the ACS.
Yeah, the AIIA.
AIIA,
yeah.
Yes. They seem to have faded a bit, but that's from a very distant view. I don't know.
Well, the establishment of the Tech Council probably took a lot of the wind, and certainly a lot of the big industry supporters away from the AIIA. So that's still a work in progress there, though, for both of them.
Well, again, it's interesting. I mean, certainly in Queensland it was very successful, but that was driven by one guy.
Oh, okay.
Who was the organiser did the secretarial work. It was Martin Lack and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
And basically AIIA became the place where all the salesmen went to see where they get their next job. It seemed to be an observation.
Sort of an employment bureau.
Yeah, that's right. But effective in that sense. So they used to do some very good networking around the place. That seemed to die out a little bit, and maybe that's the nature of these things. Quite a few things are just quite difficult to sustain beyond the original people who create them, and the initial enthusiasm doesn't automatically transfer onto the next generation.
Well, you raised some interesting points there, Bob. With the role of industry associations and member associations, and running the ethics side of the tech sector, particularly with the rise of things like artificial intelligence and so on, and its use and misuse by organisations and governments. How do you see ACS and other organisations having a role in that?
I think that's going to be interesting. Somehow you've got to have some stakes in the ground. The technology is changing so fast. So there has to be some really individual steps in the ground that says that you basically borrow somebody's tagline, "Do no harm." It's not a bad way to go. So if you saw a problem arising, don't hold back. Do something about it, and that really comes around to a strong ethical base. On there, professional organisations seem to actually espouse that. But there's always an edge case where it's not obeyed. And interesting enough, having been a company director for 40 odd years, I decided I should do the company director's course. And so I did the course over AICD. And the real push there was, I think there was a whole day in that 1 week course, which is all to do with ethics. And being a good guy. But it was backed by the law.
Very much so.
That was the case. So if you're a director, you've got a whole lot of statutory obligations. If you're a doctor, you've got a whole lot of statutory obligations. And I think, without wishing to put everybody in a straitjacket, I think something like that's got to happen in the IT space. I'm not sure what it is or how it is, but if I take aviation, almost the extreme case there where everybody has to have a licence, everybody has to have significant qualifications on the way, and that goes to the pilots, the engineers, people doing the maintenance, scheduling and all that, and a fair degree of oversight from both CASA and from the Transport Safety Board. And that keeps people focused on what they're doing, and therefore 95% of the place is very, very safe and very well done. Again, there's an inevitable 5% that are a bunch of cowboys, but that's, that's life. Piece of advice here: if you see the word experimental on the side of your aircraft, you're just about to get in pumped. Because that's maintained by the owner. But the other than that, I think that I think aviation's gone overboard, but quite successfully. But I do think that somewhere along the line we need to have some statutory penalties for stuffing things up and going. So, for instance, what's the individual's role in making sure that data protection is maintained? And if it's not happening in your organisation, what do you do about it? Where do you go? Where do you get advice? And that should be where the ACS is strongly advocating and helping people to deal with those dilemmas. Otherwise, people just say, "Well, it's not me; it's the company. I just do it." I think that's an interesting problem in there. So I think those are things for the ACS to think about in doing that. Difficult to do, but actually I think possibly adds a bit more meaning to it. And I think we're still stuck with this idea that IT's the world, is still the Wild West. Anybody can jump in, do the job, disdain the learning of it, all the good learnings that have gone before, because they're doing the next shiny thing. And that's why you end up with so much hacked stuff around the place, because people really didn't know the finer detail of what they're doing. Never had the opportunity to learn, never bothered to learn. And I think that's difficult. And I have a son who's in IT as well, and his basic rule is, "Dad, don't you go near anything you ever taste." And I think that's probably true. I think that you can stumble through quite easily and open yourself up. And again, on the aviation style, we're dealing with student data and personal data all the time. So you've really got to be aware of your obligations there and how you're going to deal with it.
No, that's
quite interesting.
Which leads quite nicely to the next question of where do you see the future of the IT industry?
More and more pervasive. It's going to come out of the factories now to the office into everyday life, very much so. We're going to see that with AI already. So as soon as you use Google or use Edge, you're getting unhelpful comments from AI sometimes. And you don't even realise that that's what's going on. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's just another algorithm. That's the side. But robotics, I think, is the big interesting thing there as that comes through. And I was in a restaurant in Sydney the other day where they had one of the robots for picking up the plates and wandering around delivering food for people, which I thought was quite interesting. But it's a start. There's certainly, I think that's an area that is going to go more. And that possibly has interesting implications for home care, for looking after an ageing population, etc. So there's quite a lot of positive there. We could end up in a situation where it's not positive because the robots are smarter than we are. That's not, or certainly smarter at doing a particular job.
And more predictable.
And they don't go sick often. So I think that probably will be the largest change, which eventually will well, we're already seeing it. I mean, my new car objects to me changing lanes if I'm not got the indicator on. So it's very helpfully telling me I've got to go back into the lane when I want to go left. And so it's creeping in there at that rate. And I don't think it's anything bad there. I think it is. The other thing that I think that is going to happen, and we do it without thinking about it, the speed of doing business is quite amazing. So I don't think twice about transferring a bank account from one place to another. That used to be a function, and it used to take you 3 days, 4 days if you were lucky.
Absolutely.
What I find fascinating is in the US, for instance, they still use cheques.
And you've still got that clearance time and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
That's right. And I have no idea why that is so. Nor am I sure why they use a greenback, which must be the most forged currency in the world.
Indeed, yes.
But it's interesting to see that things that have changed and we've taken for granted. And I think there's one thing that has happened there is that if you're not careful, if you're not in control of that speed, that's when you open yourself up to hackers, as we know, but also in decision making.
Yep.
People can send you an email and expect an answer straight away, and they're going to be upset if you're going to take a couple of days to think about it and come up with a more meaningful answer. So that's a real problem. Is that in fact making that acceptable? Otherwise, our brains don't work that fast to consider all the details. So I think that having discipline that says it won't matter if I wait. If I want to take time, I should take time. Then that's important. Otherwise, you're going to get run over by the technology.
Yeah.
On the way through.
So, what would be your advice to somebody entering the industry now?
I think that get the fundamentals right. Get your training. Understand what your business is. There is a kind of dilution going on about this. That hardcore programmers and hardcore analysts are becoming relatively rare beasts.
Right.
And we have business analysts around the place. We have technology workers around the place that are kind of peripheral. They're not actually core.
Yeah.
So I think one of the ironies I find in life at the moment is that I'm old enough to know when business analysts were actually invented.
Right. Yes.
And business analysts were invented to be servants to the systems analysts.
Right.
That's where they came from. Now they're top of the tree. They're the ones that can apparently talk to the end users and talk to the IT guys. My feeling about that is that's probably not true, but that's what their role was deemed to be. Interesting place to be, and also I think systems analysis has virtually become redundant now and rolled into analyst programmer roles. It's always a continuation, and I think there's nothing particularly wrong with that. I think that's true. But you've got to be confident enough. You know the fundamentals. You know what is good programming, what is good practice. We have so many failures around the place because of bad policy. One of the things I would say, if you look around, what's the common thing about the biggest jobs we've had? National Health in the UK, complete disaster. TAB here in Queensland, two attempts to actually get out of their legacy system, failed twice. Why? Because the project was too big. So they didn't break down the project into achievable incremental pieces. It was, we're going to do the whole thing, and it's going to be fantastic. And then they really discovered, in most cases, you didn't know what the whole thing was. Because another example of this is some of the systems you see down in Canberra. Where you see the people who actually know what's going on and not the ones being consulted about the development. They know all the traps and all the traps in legislation around the place. And I think that, so we've got to work out a better way of doing those large projects that just is properly planned, allows things to develop over time. Because if you've got a 2 or 3 year project, all you know is the technology's changed at the end of 3 years. What you started with is out of date.
That's true.
So that's, and I think that, so you've got to have flexibility in there. And I think that you do that by having, I guess, sprints would be kind of the word, but it's not quite the right word because it's slightly larger than that. But probably things that give you meaningful deliveries every 6 months. On the way through.
It's interesting what you raised there too. I'm seeing this with a lot of the vendors, the technology vendors, selling that AI is going to reduce your headcount by 50% or whatever, and companies following that, and then 6 months later, 18 months later, coming back and saying, well, we've got to hire half those people back because it was overpromised. So how much of this is the responsibility of the vendors overselling these products?
I I think it's the responsibility of the customer to be broken up to it's inevitable the vendors will do it. Quite
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I think when you're working with certainly the outlying ones,
Yep.
I think that you've got to take most of their claims with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, or a big wheelbarrow of it. Yeah.
The nugget of what they're saying is right there, but and again, I think it's a nutty situation. If you've got skilled people, why wouldn't you use them to expand? Why wouldn't you use the system to release people to do things that are more productive for you? So I think that's a more difficult path, but probably a more worthwhile one.
Yeah.
You may not be able to keep everybody, but at least you won't lose everybody in the process, because they'll move on and grab a job somewhere else.
Sure.
Especially when we're running a 4% unemployment rate. That means there's a lot of jobs out there at the moment. So I think so some of the claims for AI are, well, let's go back to a more fundamental one. When did you last see a paperless office?
Indeed. That's right, there's as much paper as ever.
Yeah. If not more. And I think that's, should be a lesson. So I think, the overall things, AI is going to do fantastic things. It's also going to make some amazingly big mistakes.
Sure.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's a dentist actually, who has discovered that he can actually do a little bit of programming on Arduinos by just going to the AI and saying, do this for me, and getting a chunk of code back.
Yeah.
And as I say to him, how do you know that works? How do you know that that's a good idea? You've completely just taken that on face value, and it probably is not right.
Yeah.
It's a good start, but it isn't right.
Yeah.
And that's an example, I think, where you've got this over people naively excited about some of this. Every student thinks their essay is going to be brilliant, so now we have, so we've got AIs checking that other AIs aren't checking essays.
That's right.
So
yes.
It's slightly bizarre, and I find that interesting. I think just a completely different observation. I did a master's in aviation because I thought I should know something about aviation a few years ago. I did that online, and that was reasonable, but I was pretty disappointed by the support you got doing that. But came out with it okay, and a very reasonable result. I found it quite useful. But what I found was interesting there was that the fact that universities are turning around saying, well, you're putting so much money into this nowadays, we really can't afford to fail you.
Ah, yes.
And that seems to be a problem, because I was looking around, and I see that all over the place. I mean, we do a lot of work in the VSL space, vet student loan place, and in the vet space. And basically the rules there are you can't fail.
Right.
If you fail, it is the instructor's problem, not yours.
Yeah.
Now, that means, interesting enough, when you're training pilots, there are some people who shouldn't be pilots.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So we have to fail them. We just also suggest that they're going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And if otherwise they're going to spend $150,000 and get a debt, and they won't have a job.
Yeah.
That's right. So there you have those things. And I saw another sort of observation, same thing, an advert on there. Getting your degree has never been easier.
Yes, I've seen that, yes.
And to my mind, I was slightly horrified by that.
Yeah.
But then, as I said before, I'm a fossil. So, so I think there is a problem with standards there, which is, in fact, education's a business now, and people are going to take the least. Most people would take the easiest route to get where they want to be.
Yeah, sure.
It's not necessarily the best route. I think it's good if you have to put in a little bit of work, I think, to get your qualification. And if nothing else, if you're not interested in it, why are you doing it?
Would you say that's been one of the drivers in your career, that you've been interested in what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say probably that's the major thing that I find is I just get fascinated by what we're doing.
Yep.
And working with people and just getting results. But in the end, you're doing it because it's a challenge. And it's a challenge that you really gets you. Well, it gets me anyway, you know.
Yep.
There are, and you can be quite proud of what you achieve sometimes. And I think that's interesting. And having a passion about what you're doing is a really good way to encourage you to be good at it. If you're doing it and you're bored, then you're in the wrong job. And that is ridiculous. You know, why would you go to work and just not enjoy it?
Yeah. So I was going to say, Bob, that is a great line to finish up on. But if there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's fine. That's my moment. That's my one moment of hubris, perhaps.
Yeah, but I really appreciate your time today, and thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you for inviting me.